In year 745 of the 41st millennium, the realm of Ultramar was besieged by High Fleet Behemoth. It was only with the sacrifice of the entire First Company that they were able to defeat these evil, tyrannic monsters. In the aftermath came the Tyrannic War Veterans. Hey everyone, Steve here for Who Took My Dice, and welcome to the first in a series looking at the creation of a Tyrannic War Veteran army. What you see here is just the beginning. I'm going to go through each unit that I have and then get to where I'm going to go next. So first off, this is my 500 point Tyrannic War Veteran army. It's got a couple Dreadnoughts here, a Predator, Cassius, and a unit of Tyrannic War Veterans, 5 to be specific. It's 500 points, it's 4 command points, that's what's earned. It's a Vanguard detachment. I think it's power level 37. It's actually really cool. I'm really happy. This has been something I've been working on for a while now. Cassius and the Tyrannic War Veterans have had for a very, very long time, since 4th Ed, when they first came out. And I thought it was about time to turn them into a full-fledged army instead of just having units that sort of hang out with the rest of the army. Before we dive in, though, a little background. These guys actually popped up in 4th Ed. 4th Ed was probably one of my favorite editions. It was the Battle for McCraig box set that had a tactical squad full of Marines, and they were going up against a squad of Termagants and Gene Stealers. And the book actually took you step by step through simple movement all the way to having a full battle. They took it even further in the White Dwarf and online with extra missions that threw in things like captains, dreadnoughts, Tyranid warriors. The whole shebang basically helped you expand your army. Even the Space Marine Codex was just all about the Tyrannic War, the first Tyrannic War at that point. All the characters was basically how they dealt with it, from Calgar, Cassius, even Tigurius. It was all about that. I think the second codex that came out at the time was tiered as well, so it was a really big deal in 4th Ed. They disappeared in 5th Ed. We called that, when I was working Games Workshop, the Great Character Call. Not that they get rid of characters, but the actual character of the books disappeared. Everything became very sterilized. All the cool little rules disappeared in favor of trying to streamline. It didn't really work very well. They came back in 6th in a data slate, which expanded on them, gave them a little bit more background. There was a cool formation, the St. Celia formation, where you had Cassius, 1+ units of Tyrannic War Veterans. They could take Land Raiders as transports, and you could have Storm Talons that were deep striking and infiltrating, I believe. And not that they can actually do that, but just it was basically showing how Cassius used them to surprise the Tyranid. It was really cool. Everything that the Storm Talons hit, if the Tyrannic War Veterans shot the same unit, they ignored cover, which is really, really cool. And then, of course, that transferred 6th, 7th, 8th. They ended up in the Index, which is really good. I was really happy. And then the first Space Marine Codex came out, and they weren't in it. And that got me a little worried. I was afraid they were eventually going to become relegated to Legends, where they'd get one last update, and that was it. Nothing else. But thankfully, they showed up in the Ultramarine supplement with a little bit more added to the background. Gullman's happy they're there. He thinks they're great. And they went on with this renewed vigor to go fight the Tyranid. I'm going to dive into the characters now. We're going to look at Cassius and the other units bit by bit, kind of show what I'm using them for and some of the cool stuff you can do with them. Here we are with Cassius, Chaplain Cassius, the Master Sanctity of the Ultramarines. This is one of my favorite models of all time. He's just full of character, standing on top of a Ripper. Even his Artificer, Crozius, has a Tyranid skull on it instead of a human skull. To show you his really cool model. Even his book there is covered in what appears to be a shot-up Imperial, not Imperial, sorry. It's got an Imperial symbol on, but Tyranid armor. Yeah, Cassius is one of those really cool characters. Now, he's got his Infernus as always. Although what's funny is I've never actually seen him with that particular weapon. Just an aside, I've never seen him with that weapon. Every time I've seen the model, it's with a bolt pistol. I'm assuming maybe they wrangled it together, what have you. He's got Infernus. He's got his Mastercrafted Bolt Gun, which is nice. His Artificer Crozius, which is cool. It's +2 strength, -2 AP, and 2 damage. He's a chaplain's chaplain, right? He's got spiritual leadership, so they can use his leadership, which is 9, but with their chapter ability, they actually get all Ultramarines get +1, so he's leadership 10. He's got Inspired Retribution, so basically, if a Ultramarine unit is wiped out, the enemy unit on I believe it's on a 6, they take mortal wounds. Right, basically that last opportunity for basically as the unit's going down, they take someone with them. They're that keen to fight on. So that's really cool. The only downside that I wish I have an issue with, and I wish GW would fix with him, is that he has nothing that states that he's a big enemy of the tyranny. Nothing. He's got Inspired Retribution, Spiritual Leadership. He's got Rosarius. He's got his Litanies of Hate and all that, and Litanies of Battle, which is good. But there's nothing that states that he's got this boiling fanatical rage, which the background gives him against the Tyranids. He did in every other edition except 8th. He always had something. Way back in 2nd edition, when Cassius first came out. He was immune to psychology. Tyranids could cause fear and terror back then, much like the game was a little bit more closely resembling the old Warhammer Fantasy. In later editions, in 4th, 5th, 6th, he always had something, whether it was preferred enemy or some ability that allowed him a bonus against Tyranids. Now, not so much. So my army, he's definitely there for the fluff. And just a little asterisk as I go on here. My army is definitely a fluff-based army. Having a ton of Tyrannic War Veterans is going to be cool. Is it super competitive? Not at all. It can do some damage, but it's there for the fluff. It's a narrative army. And so obviously, you got to have Cassius. He's the guy who's leading the army. He's the guy who created them. He was run over by a Carnifex, and when he was found still alive, still clinging to life, they rebuilt his body. Which actually you can tell in the rules now. He's toughness 5 instead of toughness 4 because he's more robot than man. He was reborn with this fanatical hatred of the Tyranids, saying they were some sort of punishment for mankind's folly. So for him not to have some sort of special rule, I think it's a misstep there. But that's Cassius. His if you look at the Ultramarine supplement, his Warlord trait is, I believe, Defenders of Ultramar. I believe that's it. Let me look that up here. I'm just going to look through here. I'm just scrolling through quickly. I want to make sure I'm right. Come on. I believe his... Almost there. Almost there. He has... Where is it? Sorry, Warden of McCraig, that's it. Warlord can perform a heroic intervention if there are any enemy units within 6 inches of them instead of 3 inches, and when doing so, he can move up to 6 inches instead of 3. So he can dive in there and get in where he needs to be, which is really cool. So that's Cassius, the fanatical creator of the Tyrannic War Veterans. Guys, next are the Dreadnoughts, the twins I call them. 2 Dreadnoughts I painted up actually in 2019 at the very beginning for Idic Beer's Get It Painted Challenge. I love those things. I kind of wish you'd bring them back. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Say no more. But beyond that, these guys play a multitude of roles in the army. They are fire support, obviously, for the veterans. They're there to kind of do some of the big game hunting, going after the bigger things. They're also there to distract from actually the enemy shooting at my Tyrannic War Veterans. I like to keep those little guys alive. They are sort of the main focus of the army. And I think they'll do well. One is armed with an assault cannon. The other one armed with a multi-melta. They're just one of my favorite units. And fluff-wise, they make sense as well because the biggest thing that Tyrannic War Veterans have them, fluff-wise, is their experience. They know how to fight the Tyranid. They know what weaknesses they have. And if one of their members is mortally wounded, they really don't want to lose that that experience. So of course it makes sense for them being interned in a Dreadnought. Um, in terms of some of the cool rules they have when it comes to them, there's a few different stratagems that benefit them. One is Duty Eternal. Basically, with that one, it's one command point, and you get to round. You get to half the damage that they take. Yeah, they get to half the damage. It means they get to survive it longer. They have, I believe, 8 wounds. Their toughness 7, so they can take quite a beating. But even in 8th edition, anything could get hurt. So it's nice to see them survive a bit. The other one, excuse me. The other one is, if I can find it here, because I can never remember these things. Where did it go? So I got these rules. I can never remember them all. Wisdom of the Ancients, another one that's a command point. Basically, they become. It shows their experience, right? Any basically you get to re-roll that hit roll of a 1. Anyone within 6 inches, any sort of Ultramarines infantry gets to re-roll that, which again is beneficial for anybody that's standing around them. Basically, also it fits in with that fluff of them having all this experience, having all this knowledge that is very beneficial for those who are maybe newer to the chapter, or even members like Cassius. It doesn't hurt to have somebody giving you good advice and information. So there's the Dreadnoughts, some really nice units, and I like them. They're one of my favorite units in my army. And next is my rescued Predator. Rescued because this is actually one of the older models I have. I got it back in 3rd ed when they first came out in plastic. It did at one point have the side sponsons. They broke so many times, that little piece that connected the actual las cannon to the sponson itself. I just gave up on it, and I decided to try and resuscitate it. So I ripped all those pieces out, put doors back in. I even took the top off here and flipped it around so the las cannon was further back. I just like the look of the vehicle that way. When it was fit farther forward without having the sponsons, it just looked weird. I also built up the twin link heavy bolter so I could turn it to a Razorback if I wanted to. But in this game I'm actually using it as my big game hunter. This is there to hunt down the Tyrannifexes, the Carnifexes, the flying hive tyrants, what have you. This is the big game hunter with the twin link las cannons, strength 9, just D6 damage, lots of firepower. It is the long range support. It is there to annihilate those big units so they don't eat my little Marines here, the yummy little delectables as they like to be called by the Tyranid. Again, it also has some really cool abilities that can come from the the stratagems. First one, it's also 1 CP, Armor of Contempt. Basically, on a 5+, if it takes a wound, that wound is not lost. Obviously, adding to the survivability of the unit, making it a bit more, just making it last longer in the game. That's what you want. The other one is Big Guns Never Tire. Now, that one I believe is also 1 command point. I might be wrong. With that, I basically can move and fire, which is beneficial for me. Maneuvering this guy around, maybe getting him away from something that's coming to tear him up, or getting him in a position where he can hit that big unit a bit easier, and I don't suffer that penalty for moving and shooting. Again, fluff-wise, in all the other stories, there's always had some sort of armored backup. There aren't that many Tyrannic War Veterans, so they do have to have some armor. Whether it's Dreadnoughts, Land Raiders, Predators, they do have some sort of backup. Again, something that goes after those big monsters. There's actually a story in the old data slate from 6th edition where the veterans are charging into battle instead of a Land Raider, and the Godhammer las cannons are firing away at the legs of the Carnifex are charging, trying to bring it down so that when the Tyrannic War Veterans come out, they can just slaughter it as it's been maimed already. So fluff-wise, it's awesome. It was nice to save an old model, to give it some life again. I repainted it. I filled in white here just to break up all the blue. Also to note that this one is tied to Cassius's veterans. It's a really good unit to have with those things like Armor Contempt, the Big Guns Never Tire. it survives longer and can hit better. All around a pretty good unit. I know they're not super popular in 8th edition, but again, my army's meant to be around sort of the fluff, and that really doesn't matter to me. I just want to have fun with it. There you go. And last but not least, the Tyrannic War Veterans themselves. I love this unit. The models are so characterful. You guys know this. I've gone over it before. I've made videos about it. But they're a really awesome unit. Now, when you normally get them, they come as a unit of 4. Fluff-wise, they've made it that there's not that many of them. They're not super numerous within the Ultramarines chapter. Real-world reason is they only ever made 4 sculpts, period. Which is kind of disheartening, especially when they came out 4th ed, simply because the unit itself had options for a flamer, a heavy bolter, you got power weapons. They never made those. That was back in the day when Games Workshop was really big on you making your own models. After all the litigious stuff they went through, that's changed now. But I love them. They're still great. I've already actually got 2 of them right now that are doubles. That's going to be one of the main issues with building up this army is I'm going to have a lot of doubles and triples of the same model. So I'm going to need to do some cutting here, different paints, different sort of paint styles here. By that I mean painting them up a little bit differently. For instance, this dude here is the sergeant. He's actually got a gold Ultramarine symbol, sort of denote him as the sergeant. When I get more of them, I'm going to have another unit of him. He's going to just get painted with a white Ultramarine symbol. That way I know. I'll probably do that for the other units as well as I get onto them. They're a really cool unit. I mean, they're your basic standard. They do have the Stern Guard keyword, which is important, so they can actually use stuff geared towards Stern Guard as well. The same stat lines as veterans, 2 attacks each, 3 attacks for the sergeant. They have their special issue bolt gun, which is range 30 inches, strength 4, minus 2 AP, 1 damage. They do have, the big thing is Bane of Tyranids. This is what allows them to have the rerolls. They can reroll their the wound roll. I'm just looking here. Yeah, the hit roll and the wound roll against all things Tyranid. Now this is really cool, and a lot of people, I don't think they looked far enough in this. It does mean that, yes, anything Codex Tyranid, these guys can have that bonus for. But also the Gene Stealer Cult Codex. Everything that has a Tyranid keyword, which means these guys are as good as they are against Tyranids, against Gene Stealers. Great bonus to have against them, especially since some of the vehicles do contain that. It means they have that, they get to reroll with that. These guys are going to be the mainline troop. Now I only have 5 here. I'm going to get to what the next step is in a few minutes. Basically, these are the guys that want to survive, right? And that's why I have things like the Dreadnought to keep them alive. Now they do have some some stratagems that will help them. One of them is Masterful Marksman, and this one is the Stern Guard one. I get to add +1 to the wound roll, which is exceptionally good. I'm already doing AP -2. I get to re-roll if I roll badly, and now I can actually, it's easier for me to wound you. Great against bigger things, especially against the smaller things. I do wish that they'd kind of maybe given a few more options back in the day. I've always felt that way, though. These are my guys, though. These are the ones that I'm definitely going to be counting on the most. And I'm going to get to what the next step is now. Obviously, I have a good basis, 500 points. One of the cool things is I do have 4 command points for this army, but I will only ever be using 3 on its own because I've taken one from the Ultramarine, something called Honored Sergeant. You use 1 command point, and your sergeant gets to pick a bit of Ultramarines war gear, and the one I've taken is Hellfury rounds. This is part of the fluff for these guys. Back in the day, their heavy bolters could fire a Hellfury round. And it was 1 shot instead of the normal 3 for every bolter, and you could put down a small blast template and wound everything on a 2+ underneath that template, which is really nice. It was great for hitting those big units of Tyranids. This one, basically, I rolled a hit, and if I hit, it's an automatic mortal wound, which is great, and then I can't fire anymore for that round with him. Again, it's fluffy. It's great to get that 1 shot off. Say there's a Hive Tyrant, maybe in reaching there, but a Hive Tyrant or a Brood Lord or something, and I get to put that final one that takes him out. I just rolled a hit, and he's out. Plus, with the reroll, I can actually make that pretty deadly. So that's the fluff reason why. But yeah, so use basic means that just using it as a Vanguard force, I'm only ever going to be using 3 command points. But I think it's worth it to give that extra bit of fluff to the character. So there you have it, guys. That is my 500 point beginning to my Tyrannic War Veteran Army. The big question is where to go next. Obviously, in the end, I want to make this a full-fledged army of these veterans. I want to have at least 30 Marines, so 3 10-man squads of veterans. I do want to get things like Land Raiders in there, some Storm Talons for air support, and obviously to branch into some of the Primaris stuff, but sort of as support units. For the immediate future, where do I go next? Well, one, I do have another Tyrannic War Veteran here, this gentleman here. He is, again, the problem I'm going to have with this is multiple units. He is the same model as this guy. What I've done, though, is I've sliced off the combat dagger and added an old school 2nd edition bolter, right? Again, that's sort of the difficulty. The main difficulty of doing this army is I'm going to have multiples of the same model, so I'm going to have to do things. Obviously, the next step, as I said, getting a Primaris. I have taken a Primaris Space Marine that I got with the that book, the How to Get into 40K book. I picked it up at one point. This one I've taken, I haven't added the normal head, I've taken a special head from the Ultramarines upgrade sprue, and I also cut off the magazine and added one from a Stormbolter to kind of make it look like a souped up, could be either the Assault Bolter Rifle or the Marksman Bolter Rifle. That way I can use either. I paint up as a 1st Company veteran, so he's going to be lieutenant for my Ultramarines 1st Company there, to go along with Cassius. The next, obviously, I have ordered up, now that things are back up and running, I've ordered up another squad of Tyrannic War Veterans to paint up and add to this to get that first 10-man unit. I've got more paints that I need. I've run out of a few things that I do need to get these guys done. Also, in terms of another HQ, I do have one of the old metal Librarians and Terminator armor, and I decided that's just too heavy. So I actually went for that special, I ordered it a few weeks ago now, that special they had with the Sister of Battle and the Terminator or the Librarian and Terminator armor. I think he's cool. I like the fact his bolter is sort of bolted onto his armor, almost like a Grey Knight, and he's got his hands up like he's about to bring down pain and suffering on some poor unfortunate fool. It's going to be a great thing to add to the army, whether as, like you said, a replacement for Cassius, because he's really there just for the fluff, or to have him alongside. The other big thing is the command points. Obviously, no matter how big I make this thing, as long as it stays within the confines of the Vanguard detachment, I can have 30 Gene Stealers. I can have 30 Tyrannic War Veterans, but I'm only ever going to have 4 command points. As I said, I've already used one permanently for the Hellfire round, the Hellfury round, I should say. The next step would obviously to add it to another detachment, say a battalion, which I can easily do up using scouts, so I keep it small. It makes sense to have this infiltrating units running around, but with 9th on the way, the big, and them saying that there's going to be lots of command points, we'll see what happens. Hopefully it'll mean I can just sort of build on this one thing and sort of keep it a compact unit without having to bring in other battalions to try and boost it up that aren't really Tyrannic War Veterans. We'll see what goes from there, but that is the next step. I'm waiting for those 2 special models to come in so I can paint up the Terminator, a Librarian, and obviously more Tyrannic War Veterans. That's the start, and then when those come in, we'll get those done, and we'll showcase that, and we'll build on it. But thank you very much, guys, for sitting through this. This is going to be a project. It's a passion for me. I really love these guys. I've been a big Ultramarines man forever. You guys know that. You guys know I'm big Tyrannic War Veterans, and it's cool to finally take this project. And it's part of my way of celebrating 25 years. This year hasn't really gone, I think, the way anybody thought it would. I was hoping to have more time, just haven't had it. But this is the start of that. I'm going to make this a bigger army now. I'm hoping you guys will continue on the journey with me. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. You guys are awesome. Please don't forget to subscribe. Hit the like button and hit the little bell icon to make sure that you never miss another one of these videos. And as always, guys, keep rolling those dice. See you later.